My pleasure to be with you today to share with you some experiences that I had at the rebbe, at the table of the rebbe for the sedorim. Rabbi Will, Rabbi Willem very graciously asked me to spend some time with you, and again, it's my pleasure to be able to tell you what I remember. Let me just say a few words about myself, telling you about the general scenario, and that is really what I'm going to be focusing on and concentrating on, the general scenario. The rebbe, for many years, and I'll be talking about that exactly, ate, and it was public, and people could come in and watch the rebbe, and many will be able to tell you exactly what the rebbe did and when he did it, etc. But I'm coming perhaps from a different perspective, and I'm going to talk more about the general scenario, what it was all about, and I'm going to give you a little background to it. I came to Lubavi in the year 1958, Tavshin Yudches. I was 17 years old, and I left on for shlichus in years later, in Tavshin Chovav. And actually, for 9 years, I was at the sedorim, two sedorim each year. Actually, 1 year I was in Benoit, I was in Paris. We were sent to their shluchim of the rebbe, Talmidim HaShluchim. And the second day was always, perhaps I wasn't there the entire time, but whatever, I did have had the merit to be at the Rebbe Seder, whether for a short time, for a longer time, over a period of from 1958 until 1966 and including. Let me give you a little background for your information, in case you don't know, we should know exactly where we are. And that is that in 770, of course, now you come to 770, there's a building, 770 Eastern Parkway. On the left side, there's extension reaching all the way to Kingston Avenue. And for many years, it was just 770. On the left side was an apartment house. 770 has 3 floors. And the previous rebbe, purchased 770, the property. It was in 1940 when he came to America. And the ground floor is, as I'm sure you know, there's a little shul there, and that actually was for many years the only shul in 770, except for downstairs, which was an unfinished area, the rebbe's office and the Merkaz office. And the second floor, which is the middle floor, that was the residence of the previous rebbe. The previous rebbe, Zechron Levracha, took up the entire second floor of 770. And always it was generally in the lives of rabbis, their home, that is where I would say they fulfill their being a rebbe. That's where they meet with people, that's where they teach, that's where they give the classes. And so it was with the previous rebbe. He did everything in terms of meeting with people and speaking on that floor. That was the rebbe's place. That was rebbe's home, and also where he, I don't like to say fulfilled his role as the rebbe, because he fulfilled his role as rebbe, whatever he did, but that is where he was seen as rebbe. The third floor was actually considered to be part of the yeshiva, Tevchei Tamimim, and there was a notice on the elevator on the ground floor, office of lubavitcher yeshivas on the third floor, and that was the domicile, that was the residence of the older son-in-law, Rabbi Shmayahu Garari, and he lived there with his wife. Now, all the years that before the rebbe became rebbe, as long as the previous rebbe was still alive, again, everything happened on the second floor, and in his residence. And when the rebbe spoke, which was mostly on a yontif, it would be part of the meal. People would come in, the meal, and then the rebbe would speak between courses. I was never there, but I've read and we read about it, and that's we know what happened. And that particular scenario of eating in the rebbe's house, in his apartment, it was in his place, in his domicile, that continued on after the passing of the rebbe. The previous rebbe was nifta in the year 1950, and as long as the rebbitzin, the previous rebbe's wife was alive, then on yontivs and on special days, there was a meal was served there, just as it was in the time of in times of the Rebbe. And let me give you a picture of the room. The room and the room looked the big room, big dining room, and around the table were sitting people. And this is, of course, after the Rebbe, after our Rebbe became Rebbe, and a large room, a large table. And I'm now standing. I'm not actually standing. Picture this: that I'm standing at the head of the table. Standing at the head of the table and looking down towards all the people at the table. Now, all the people at the table were only invited guests who participated in the meal and were given the meal. So I'm standing behind the head table, behind the chair at the head of the table, which was the previous Rebbe's place, and on my right, notice on my right, was sitting the older son-in-law of the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Garari, and on the left was our Rebbe, who sat on the left, being the younger son-in-law. Now, again, this continued. This was the eating there was on every yontif, and the Rebbe really, our Rebbe, when he was there, he sat there. Obviously, he had his place was the next place to him. I don't think anybody sat exactly right next to him, and he was given, of course, the great honor. He was the Rebbe, but this was exactly as it was when the previous Rebbe was alive. And the Rebbe did not really do any. He ate, of course, but he didn't. He didn't speak. He didn't give any talks. Maybe he talked to someone. Maybe somebody come over to him. Might say a few words, but nothing official was done. This was in the previous Rebbe's place, and the Rebbe, of course, as we know, the tremendous awe and respect that the Rebbe had for his father-in-law was very evident. They were seeing the Rebbe, how he sat next to the place of his father-in-law, as though his father-in-law was there, with a reverence and sitting upright, and knowing the full understanding that he was in the presence of his Rebbe, to whom he gave not only utmost respect, but respect which went on and continued through all the years of our Rebbe's being our Rebbe. Of course, Rebbe still is our Rebbe, but as long as he was with us as Al Mohadein in this world in 770. Now, there were certain times in the year when, of course, to see the Rebbe any day was seeing the Rebbe. The Rebbe, if he had the service, he came into davening. That was special, just to be at the davening, to see the Rebbe. And the Rebbe would come in usually every day on a mincha mariv, see the Rebbe, how he davened, how he sat down. We could talk about that. We could talk about each of these items for a long time, and each one of these items would deserve a time for itself. But there was times in the year which were very, very special. Just to mention a few of them. Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbe blowing tekiyos. There were thousands of people. They climbed on the walls to see the Rebbe to blow the tekiyos. The Rebbe taught the nigun for many years, on Simchas Torah very early in the morning. And I was there by many of them, just to be there, to be at that time early in the morning. Other times on the year, Simchas Torah, the end of Yom Kippur, they sang Napoleon's March, just to see how the Rebbe turned around, just to see how the Rebbe suddenly turned around and joined everybody singing Napoleon's March. That itself was not only a thrill and excitement, but it was a moment of Kedusha, tremendous Kedusha, seeing the Rebbe participate in Napoleon's March at the height of Yom Kippur, the very last waning seconds of the day, just to be there. And so there were many, many moments like that. And to me, this is how I look at being at the Rebbe's Seder. I came to Lubavitcher in Tafshin Ches in 1958, and I was in Montreal, learned in Montreal, and actually my family, my parents, my family lived on Eastern Parkway. And we're not Lubavitcher, we came closer to Lubavitcher later years, but we lived not far away. And I, as many others, were facing a situation. I sat at my father's Seder, and I owed the respect to my father not to suddenly get up and walk away and say, I'm going to the Rebbe. Maybe if my father would have been born a Lubavitcher, he may have understood it, but I was not ready to do that. And I did leave early, and I came to the Rebbe, and I did see a good part of the Seder. And many of the Bochum were there, And many, of course, the younger light, those who are not yet married, still students, older students, those who are the young married were there. Perhaps they ate a little faster, they were there. And some were able to come there at the beginning of the Seder. But as I walked in, and again, let me stop for a second to explain something to you. The rebbe, I told you, would eat all the meals at every yontif upstairs, as we would say, upstairs in the previous rebbe's home. Now, anybody could come in and be there. They couldn't sit at the table, of course. Sit at the table is only by invitation only, absolutely by invitation only, part of the Suda. But the front door, and if we're talking about the front door, I'm talking about the front door to the second floor. On the second floor of 770, there's a door into the previous rebbe's apartment, and that door was not only unlocked, but I believe it was open, if I remember correctly. Anybody could walk in and stroll over to the dining room and stand there. There was, of course, usually a crowd for the Pesach with Sedorim, a larger crowd, and could stand there. For the Seder, it was very difficult because people would come much earlier, and the only way we could stand now, I'm standing at the head of the table, but really, I'm looking at the table, I think most of the people who came in to watch were on the left side. And I always stood on the left side as if I'm standing at the head of the table. In other words, the same side as the rebbe. I think that it was easier to see exactly what the rebbe was doing from that vantage point. And there were many people, and it was hard, to get, as we would say in the vernacular, get a good place. So there was really no places. It was just a matter of standing behind the chairs because nobody was offered. You couldn't sit down. There wasn't a theater, and you had to just stand behind the chairs, a crowd behind the chairs. And this was the night. This is the night of Pesach. And we know night of Pesach, what night of Pesach is. And again, I want to tell you that according to Ben Hagim, it's written in the Chabad Haggadah, which is written by the Rebbe. It says different in the first night and the second night. Now, always, clearly so, we have the minhag that during the Seder we do a lot of talking, a lot of discussion, that you should tell your children, you discuss with your children, there's discussions back and forth. There was very, very, very limited discussion, if anything at all, at the Seders of the Rebbe, because, again, the Rebbe was at the place of his father-in-law. And the Seder, we came into the Seder, the place of the previous Rebbe, the head of the table, was set up just as though the Rebbe would be there, just as though the previous Rebbe would be there with the Seder plate. I never thought of going over to count the matzahs, to count the this, to count the that, or the weigh anything, but the Seder plate was set up as though the Rebbe is coming in, as though he was there. That's how it was treated. And the Rebbe, again, sitting on the left side of his father-in-law, the left side, I should say, of the place of his father-in-law. And what I noticed most of all, and perhaps I did notice little things of exactly how much here and how much there, and was it slice here, was it slice there. The whole atmosphere there was the holiness of the atmosphere was very fulfilling and very meaningful. Now the Rebbe did not read the Haggadah aloud. At any Seder, somebody reads the Haggadah aloud, and that was done by a well-known chassid from Chicago, Yaakov Katz. He read the Haggadah, he would read it loud, you could hear it from the outside, he read it very loud, and the Rebbe read to himself, reading from the Haggadah, and the Haggadah the Rebbe used was, I would say, his own Haggadah. The Chabad, the Miracles printed a Haggadah, and the Rebbe used one of those Haggadahs, and he was reading from it, never loud, never saying anything over the voice of the one reading the Haggadah, and the son of the Rabbi Yaakov Katz, his son, would ask the 4 questions, and that's how it was the years that I remember. Interesting point. Of course, we know that one of the big items on the agenda of the Seder is, as we say in the Manishtana, Halayla Hazeh Kulonu Mesubim. This night we all recline. Every night we do, we don't. This night we're all reclining. Now, actually, not all of us, and certainly not at the Rebbe's Seder. And the Rebbe's Seder, The Rebbe did recline, of course, and he had a chair on the left side, and he would lean back, recline, and but I will tell you, and I'm saying this only for the sake of history, not to say anything negative about anybody. That's not the point. But there was, besides the Rebbe, there was only one person there, and I'm just interjecting as thoughts come to my mind. The women ate in another room. The women were eating in another room. We did not see the women, and the women would include, of course, the Rebbe's Rebbitzin, and the Rebbe's Chaim Mushka, and the Rebbe's mother, who was there for the Sidorim. And of course, the previous Rebbe's wife, Nechamedina, was there, and I suppose others, I don't know. But in the room, the big dining room, with people sitting around, people were invited. Only one person reclined besides the Rebbe. Of course, Rebbe reclined, and that was the son of Rabbi Gorari, Rabbi Shmario Gorari. And as is well known, without going into reasons or understanding that, he did not accept the Rebbe as Rebbe. And the law is in Shulchan Aruch that yes, everyone has to recline, every male has to recline. However, and also, if a person is sitting at the table of a parent, of a father, then yes, the sons do recline. And that's why the yeshiva boys, they go home, sit at their father's seder, they are reclining. However, there is a point that if he's sitting at the table of Rabbi Mufak, of his rebbe, his rebbe and teacher, to whom he considers to be his rebbe, one is not allowed to recline. And so there was this one exception who felt, of whatever reason, that the Rebbe was not his Rebbe. He did recline. Other than that, everybody, there was no reclining, except, of course, as I mentioned, for the Rebbe. What struck me very much when I was there, and the first years I was there, I was 17 years old the first time, 18 the next year, and I'd come a little late, and there were Bochum there who were put there, wanted to see this, wanted to see that. But I was struck by how the Rebbe did everything, and it was so perfect. Had his table. When it came to taking the moreh and the gzais, I know that I suppose it's very common. We take it and we see do we have enough, and somebody checks it enough. The Rebbe knew exactly what he was doing. He had it in front of him, and he took care of everything himself. And it seemed to me that on the seder table, on his seder plate, nothing ever went wrong. Nothing ever slipped or fell or went here, went there. Everything was perfect. And the Rebbe, of course, did everything himself there. Everything had been brought to him before, and everything was set up for him. And I'll tell you something that I noticed. And you might consider it to be very trivial, but I happen to have made a strong impression on me. It says in our minhagim, it says in our customs, that when we drink the wine, and this brought down the customs, we do this not only on the Seder, with those always, we try to drink it in one gulp. We drink all at one time. Now, of course, according to Shulchan Aruch, you can drink it in more than one, it's not a big difference, but according to our minhag, we try and we drink wine for Kiddush, and this is brought down very clearly in the Haggadah for Pesach, in the Lubavitcher Haggadah. We drink it all in one gulp. And yes, the Rebbe was reclining, and he drank everything in one gulp. And I noticed he did this every time that I saw, every time that I watched. When he finished drinking it, the whole thing in one gulp, as he lifted the cup, the becher, from his lips, he put it back into his lips and took just the very last drop. And I couldn't help but thinking to myself, I'm sure you've heard of the wording, the phrase made famous by Maxwell House Coffee, good to the last drop. And here we saw there could not have been more than a tiny, tiny, tiny drop of wine in the cup. I mean, the Rebbe drank the whole thing very carefully, all the way down. But just in case there was a little drop left, he would always, and I think it was always, for me it was always, just put it back again and take that final drop of a drop. And I would think to myself, that teaches us that when we're doing a good thing, and sometimes we shouldn't leave until we've got even good to the last drop, in a Torah sense, to get every single drop we can. And again, the Rebbe did everything very perfectly in terms of making the kazesim, and exactly was it too big or too small? He didn't. It was not. It was maybe things were weighed before, but he certainly, he saw what he had and he put it in his mouth, and everything went very well. And I always noticed that when it came to the hard-boiled egg, although many people are careful whether they have to according to Shulchan Aruch or not, it's a matter of discussion whether you have to have, when you eat a hard-boiled egg, if you have to open it up to make sure that it is whatever, if it's good, you could eat it, and there's nothing, no red spot in there or whatever. The Rebbe did not open it up in any way, but he ate it. Obviously, he wanted to eat the egg as a whole egg and did not break it up in any way before he ate it. And also, he would drink wine, as it says, during the course of the meal, I believe after the first course. And of course, if we have 4 cups, and one might think that you're not allowed to, but it's brought out in our Haggadah that we do drink, and certainly it's not one of the 4 cups, but the Rebbe did drink, and when I remember, he did not in any way say l'chaim on it, because obviously it had a special holiness all of its own. And what I want to tell you about, what I wanted to bring out, that certainly made the strongest impression in my mind, and I'm sure in the mind of everybody who was there, who had the zchus to be there, and that was the Rebbe putting back the kos shel Eliyahu. And you must have heard of this because, as you know, that we fill the cup of Elijah's cup, kos shel Eliyahu, discussion before the Birkas Hamazon, at the Birkas Hamazon. I happen to remember, and perhaps others remember differently, different years. I remember the Rebbe would do it before the Birkas Hamazon. The Rebbe would fill up the cup of Elijah, and then putting it back. And it says in the Minhagim, and brought down the Minhagim, that as the wine is poured back, the people there who were there sing Keli Atov Veiteka, the last words of the Hallel, Nigun of the Alter Rebbe, and they sing as the wine is being poured back. And when the Rebbe did it, it was not only a beautiful sight and an amazing sight, but the Rebbe had a way of putting back the wine, and nobody, when I say nobody, I mean nobody could keep up with the Rebbe exactly what he was doing. Because according to Shulchan Aruch, it's a very simple situation of putting all the wine into the cup and then putting it back and finishing it off in 2 minutes. But the Rebbe would start to do that, and then he would suddenly go back and forth and back and forth, and then he would, as it was going on and on and on, he would introduce his own cup. In his own cup, he poured something into his own cup, his own becher from which he had drunk and had the 4 cups, and that went back, and then some or other, the wine in the plate of his own becher also came into play, went back and forth and back and forth. And I thought to myself one time, I got a tremendous idea. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to watch the Rebbe, and I'm going to watch him only for very